This happened a few months ago. I'd been working as a police officer for over a decade, patrolling the quiet streets of my hometown at night. I always thought the nights would be uneventful, but what happened changed everything. One particularly quiet evening, I got a call about strange noises coming from the abandoned church at the edge of town. I parked my cruiser in front. The old building loomed in the darkness. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out. A chill ran down my spine. Walking up the creaky steps, I heard it. A muffled cry, faint but distinct. I hesitated. Was someone in there? I took a deep breath and knocked on the door. No answer. I pushed it open. It creaked loudly. Inside, it was dim. The moonlight barely pierced through the broken stained glass. Shadows danced on the floor. I stepped further in, the cry now fading away. I checked every corner. It was empty, but my skin prickled. I shook it off, thinking it was just my imagination. I left, but the sound lingered in my mind. Over the next weeks, I kept getting calls. Each time I returned to the church, I saw something different. Shadowy figures moving behind the stained glass, graffiti that hadn't been there before. Each visit made me more uneasy. Then there were the reports from the townsfolk about missing pets. Every time I visited the church, another dog or cat disappeared. I tried to reassure them, but deep down, I felt uncertain. One cold night, I stood outside the church alone. The street was silent, and I could hear my breath echo. I glanced toward the windows. A figure stood there just out of reach. My heart raced. I called out, "Hey, is anyone there?" Nothing but silence. I turned to leave when I heard it. "Mark." The whisper chilled me. I stepped back, searching the shadows. I could feel cold air wrap around me. I looked around. The street was empty. Who had called my name? In the following nights, each shift felt longer. I stopped by the church often. Each time I felt something following me. I could almost see it, but never fully. I thought I was losing my mind, or maybe something bad was happening. Then came a night I'll never forget. I found a note pinned to the door. It simply said, "You shouldn't have come back." I stepped back, stunned. Who had written this? My heart raced. I felt the eyes on me again. I turned, but the road was empty. I thought about my family waiting at home. Did I really want to confront whatever this was? The feeling of dread grew. Something dark was happening, and I couldn't shake the feeling it was only the beginning. I had to turn away, but I knew it wouldn't let me go that easily. I felt trapped in a nightmare I couldn't escape. The night was unusually still as I sat in my cruiser, the only sound coming from the quiet hum of the engine. I wanted to keep my mind occupied, so I began flipping through the reports I had collected about the church. I hoped some detail would stand out and give me a lead. Missing pets, the strange noises, shadowy sightings. The more I thought about it, the more it consumed me. I decided to drive around the neighborhood, looking for anything out of place. As I cruised past houses, I noticed a flicker of light in one of the windows of a nearby home. It was late, and most people were already in bed. Curiosity sparked within me, pushing me to investigate. I pulled over and stepped out. When I reached the door, I knocked, but there was no response. The flickering light vanished. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. It was abnormal for a light to turn off so quickly. I knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. I raised my hand to knock once more when the door swung open. A woman stood there. Her eyes were wide, and her hands trembled slightly. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice shaky. I introduced myself and mentioned the light. "I saw your light flickering." She glanced behind me, and her expression tightened. "I didn't mean to bother anyone. It was just the television." I gave a weak smile, but something about her demeanor felt wrong. It was as if she was scared of something outside her home. The unease crept back, and I took a step back, telling myself I shouldn't push her further. Resuming my patrol, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had interrupted something. I rolled down the window for fresh air and focused on the faint sounds around me, the distant rustling of leaves, the soft click of an engine revving in the distance. Just as I passed the church, I saw movement in the shadows, the very spot where I had seen the figure before. My hands tightened around the wheel. I considered calling for backup, but a part of me wanted to confront it alone. Curiosity and dread fought inside me like a violent storm. With a deep breath, I pulled into the church's lot again. The moonlight illuminated the door, and I stepped out, scanning the area. Something wasn't right. I felt as though the church itself was alive, watching, waiting. My flashlight flickered as I shined it toward the noise, a rustling in the bushes near the entrance. Suddenly my heart raced. Out of the corner of my eye, I thought I saw a child peeking from behind a gravestone. Panic surged through me, and I called out, "Hey, is anyone there?" The child didn't answer. Instead, they turned and dashed inside the church. My chest tightened. I had to go after them. I felt a mix of urgency and fear. What was happening? As I crossed the threshold, the heavy air pressed down on me. I was not ready for what awaited inside. That's when I heard the whisper again. "Mark." I froze. Something wasn't just following me, it was calling me. I had to know the truth. I pressed on. The darkness inside the church swallowed me whole. I took a cautious step forward, my flashlight casting long, shaky shadows. Dust motes danced in the beam of light, and the air was thick with the smell of something decaying. The whisper echoed in my mind. "Mark." It sounded like a plea, yet so distant. I hesitated, straining my ears for any sign of the child. Silence loomed heavily, punctuated only by the faint creaking of old wood. I called out again, "Is anyone here?" My voice bounced off the walls, swallowed by the gloom. Then faintly, I heard it. The sound of small feet shuffling across the floor. I turned my flashlight in the direction I thought I'd heard it, but all I saw were pews lined up in tight rows, like sentinels guarding the forgotten. My pulse quickened. Was the child lost? Running from something? I edged deeper into the church, feeling the chill creep in. My instincts screamed to leave, but I couldn't turn back now. I had to find the child. The whisper echoed again, louder this time. "Mark." Suddenly a soft giggle broke through the silence, high-pitched and innocent. "Come play," it called from the shadows. I felt my stomach drop. This was not a game. My heart raced, but I followed the sound, warily moving toward the altar. Just as I reached the front, the giggle morphed into a soft sob. It was a stark contrast that made me freeze again. I turned my flashlight toward the source, but the beam trembled as I tried to steady it. All I could see were the outlines of old stained glass windows. The colors, dulled by time, offered no comfort. "Where are you?" I called out, my voice trembling now. "I'm a police officer. You're safe." Silence engulfed the room again, suffocating me. I felt a prickling sensation at the back of my neck. Then a shadow darted across my vision. I spun around, catching a glimpse of a small figure disappearing into a side room. "Wait!" I shouted, taking off after them. As I reached the door, I paused. A chill washed over me. I had lost the child, but I wasn't alone. I felt a presence looming. I took a step back, and that's when I saw it. A shape materialized just outside the doorway, tall and dark, blocking the faint light from behind. My heart pounded against my ribs like a trapped animal. I snapped my flashlight toward it, but in an instant, the figure vanished. "Mark, why are you here?" The whisper echoed again, sending a wave of cold dread through me. It felt right behind me, as if it had materialized from the shadows. I locked my eyes on the doorway, scanning for any sign of movement. And that's when I saw it. On the ground, small and pale, lay a tattered stuffed bear, its button eyes glinting in the dim light. I bent down to pick it up. As my fingers brushed the fabric, a vision flickered in my mind. A glimpse of a child, lost and scared, hiding away. I straightened quickly, clutching the bear, realizing this was more than just a toy. It was a connection. The air shifted suddenly, thickening with tension. I had stumbled into something sinister. "What do you want?" I called out, my voice a mix of defiance and uncertainty. And then everything went dark. No whisper, no giggle. Just silence. I blinked into the void, my flashlight extinguished, leaving me enveloped in oppressive darkness. Panic surged through me. I fumbled for the switch, but nothing happened. The beam was gone, and I was left with only a faint memory of light, as if someone had snuffed out a candle. I couldn't breathe. I forced myself to focus. My other senses kicked in. I could hear my own heartbeat echoing in the quiet. It felt like the entire church was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. "Hello?" I called weakly, but my voice sounded foreign in this stillness. Just when I thought I might be trapped in this dark forever, I heard it. A whisper, low and rasping. "Mark." Again. Closer this time. I steadied myself, trying to locate the source. My pulse raced, and I felt the stuffed bear heavy in my hand. I moved slowly, relying on memory to navigate the room. I searched for the altar I had just stood before. Suddenly, a soft light flickered back to life. It glowed weakly from the corner of the room, illuminating the outline of a child standing just beyond the pews. "Come play," the voice sang out, innocent but laced with something I couldn't quite place. My intuition warned me. "Wait!" I shouted, stepping forward again, drawn by the desperation in my chest. I didn't want to lose sight of this child. I had found something that could lead me closer to understanding what was happening here. "Where are you going?" The child darted toward the side hall, the light winking out once more. I sprinted after them, casting about with my flashlight, desperate to catch a glimpse of the little figure. The side hall was narrow, its walls cramped and decaying. I could hardly see anything, but movement ahead caught my eye. A fleeting shadow slipped into a rusted door at the end of the hall. My breath quickened. I reached the door, gripping the knob tightly, ready to fling it open. What was behind it? Could it be the child? I paused, listening. The air was thick with a muffled whimper. "Mark, please," it breathed, echoing again, sounding more like a warning this time. Fear gnawed at my insides. I pushed the door open cautiously, and it creaked loudly. The dim light from the corridor barely filled the space beyond, revealing an old storage room cluttered with dust-covered furniture and cobwebs. In the corner, a figure cowered behind a dilapidated crate. My heart sank. "Please don't be scared, I'm here to help," I said softly, inching forward. But the child didn't move. I felt an icy gust sweep past me, snuffing out the little warmth the hallway had offered. Something was in the room with us, something other than the child. Then, the distinct echo of a child's laughter rang through the room, followed by a chorus of whispers. "He's here." They echoed in soft chirps, rustling through the shadows like leaves in a breeze. I looked around in panic, desperation clawing at my throat. I had to act. "Show yourself!" I shouted, but instead of an answer, the laughter grew louder. When the shadows shifted, blocking the dim light, I caught movement behind me, a dark figure materializing, watching. I turned just in time to see its eyes. They glinted like shards of glass filled with hunger. That's when I realized I wasn't alone anymore. I stumbled back, the bear slipping from my grasp and falling to the ground. It all felt like a nightmare, but I was wide awake. Then the whispers stopped, and everything went deafeningly silent. The silence felt thick, like a weight pressing against my chest. The dark figure loomed larger, its eyes piercing through the shadowy clutter of the room. I could barely make out its features, but something about that stillness made my skin crawl. I was frozen, a deer caught in headlights, waiting for the moment I would have to move. Then a sharp breath broke the stillness, echoing from the corner where the child had been. I turned to look, my stomach twisting in knots. The figure was gone. I blinked, trying to comprehend what I was seeing. The crate stood empty. "Where did you go?" My voice wavered, barely breaking through the fear. A small sound of shuffling on the wooden floor pulled my attention. My flashlight flickered back to life, casting a flimsy beam over the room. Something shifted in the corner, near the door I had just entered. I took a tentative step forward. "Is someone there?" As if in response, the whispers returned, this time more urgent. "Mark, come back." The voice trembled, tugging at something deep inside me. A chill ran down my spine. That was the same voice I had heard before. I had a choice to make. I could retreat into the hall, back to the safety of the uncertain light outside, or I could venture further into the darkness and seek out the child. The whispers wrapped around me, tempting me to stay. I stepped forward again, heart pounding, pushing aside the fear. My flashlight swept over the scattered debris, weaving through the shadows. The laughter echoed again, a sweet, childlike sound, yet woven with something sinister. This time it was louder, almost mocking. Then I noticed it, a glint on the floor beneath the dust. I knelt down, brushing the dirt away to reveal a small, rusted key. A feeling of dread washed over me. "What do I do with this?" I whispered, half to myself, half to whatever forces lingered in this forsaken room. As my fingers closed around the cold metal, a new sound permeated the air. The door creaked softly behind me. It was ajar now, moving slightly as though someone or something was trying to push it open. I turned sharply, my breath hitching. "Who's there?" I demanded, but there was only silence in response. Placing the key in my pocket, I turned to the dark corner once more, ready to take another step. The room felt like it was closing in on me, my instincts screaming for me to flee. Instead, I took a deep breath and moved toward the door, ready to face whatever lay beyond. Just then, a soft giggle erupted from the shadows, and the darkness shifted again. "Come play," it teased, as if a game was in progress. My heart raced. I pushed against the door, stepping into the hallway, the flickering light from my flashlight casting eerie shapes on the crumbling walls. I needed to know where this child was leading me. Heavy footsteps echoed behind me, out of sync with the childlike voice. Suddenly, the hallway turned icy, breath forming visible puffs in the air. I quickened my pace, but the laughter followed me, ringing with a chilling glee. It was time to confront the truth, no matter how terrifying it might be. That's when I noticed the door at the end of the hall, more ornate than the others. It was slightly ajar, with a faint glow spilling from within. Everything inside me screamed to turn back, but I knew I had to know. I didn't know what awaited on the other side, but my curiosity propelled me forward, toward the unknown. As I stepped closer to the ornate door, an unsettling mix of fear and curiosity churned inside me. The faint glow intensified, flickering like a beacon in the dark. The air shimmered, heavy with anticipation. I reached for the doorknob, half expecting to find it cold and rusted, but instead it turned smoothly in my grip. With a quick push, I opened the door. My flashlight illuminated a room that felt both familiar and foreign. Vintage wallpaper hung peeling off the walls, and an old rocking chair swayed gently in the corner, despite the lack of any breeze. The source of the glow came from a cracked mirror hanging above a dusty dresser. Inside the mirror, I caught a glimpse of movement, a dark shadow flickering behind me. I turned, heart racing, but nothing was there. "Mark," the child's voice called softly from somewhere beyond the room. It was so close, yet seemed to echo from a distance, as if the walls themselves were whispering secrets. "Where are you?" I called out, my voice sounding small and feeble against the oppressive silence. I took a cautious step inside, and the door creaked ominously as it slowly swung shut behind me. The air felt thicker in here, swirling around me like a tangible force. In a sudden burst of determination, I moved toward the mirror. It was there, I felt, where the answers lay. As I got closer, I noticed my reflection didn't look quite right. My face appeared pale, almost ghostly, and the shadows in the background seemed to shift unnaturally. I leaned in, trying to understand the strange distortion when the rocking chair began to rock more vigorously. My breath quivered in my throat as I turned to face the chair. The giggling returned, soft and sweet, but infused with something dark. I could feel it tugging at my sanity, begging me to give in to the game. "Come play with us," it beckoned. Just then, from the corner of my eye, I saw a flicker of movement in the mirror. The reflection showed not just me, but a small figure standing behind me. I spun around again, but there was nothing there. I faced the mirror once more, my heart thundering in my chest. That's when I saw it. A pair of tiny hands pressed against the glass from the other side, leaving smudged fingerprints on the surface. The child's face emerged from the shadows beyond, eyes wide, almost pleading. "Help me, please." I stumbled backward, colliding with the dresser. The old wood creaked under the pressure, but I couldn't tear my gaze away from the mirror. I had to do something. The key in my pocket felt like a weight, pulling me towards the realization I had avoided. "Who are you?" I shouted, trying to keep my voice steady. The reflection smiled, an unsettling grin that made my stomach twist in knots. "Find me," it said simply, before vanishing from view. A cold chill enveloped the room, and the shadows coalesced, swarming around me. Panic surged, pushing me into action. I scanned the room, looking for something, anything to latch onto, a clue, a way out. Suddenly the laughter erupted again, but this time it echoed from all around. My flashlight flickered ferociously, and then the room plunged into darkness. In that instant, whispers rose around me, filling my ears with dozens of overlapping voices, all urging me to reveal the truth. I gasped as the floor trembled beneath me, and the mirror shattered into 1,000 pieces, reflecting fragments of my terror. I was left standing, heart racing, alone in the dark, with only one thought in my mind. I had to uncover the child's secret before it was too late. I stood frozen in the darkness, my breath heavy in my chest. Shards of glass crunched beneath my feet as I caught my balance. I could barely think. Fear clouded my mind. I needed to get out of here. Just as panic threatened to swallow me whole, the child's voice drifted through the shadows again, softer now. "Help me, Mark." The pleading call nearly brought me to my knees. I blinked in the darkness, trying to make sense of the space around me. The rocking chair had stopped, but the air felt charged, alive with a sinister energy. My hand trembled as I fished out my phone, the faint glow of the screen barely illuminating the room. Taking a deep breath, I turned back to where the mirror had been. It was now just a jagged outline against the wall, but I felt its presence, a gaping void that beckoned me. Was the child still out there? The key in my pocket pressed against my thigh like a pulse. I took a cautious step forward, my feet crunching on broken glass. The room echoed with the sound, a reminder of the chaotic energy still swirling around me. "Please, who are you?" I whispered into the abyss, my voice shaking. There was silence, the kind that pressed against your ears. Just as I thought all hope was lost, I spotted a glimmer beneath the dresser. A small object caught the light of my phone. I bent down, my heart racing, and pulled out an old locket. Dust covered it, but I could make out the intricate designs etched into the silver. My fingers brushed the clasp, and the locket swung open with a soft click. Inside was a tiny photograph of a smiling girl, her bright eyes looking up at me. But something was off. She looked eerily familiar, like the child from the mirror. I glanced around the room, a chill gripping me. Suddenly the atmosphere changed. The walls felt like they were closing in, and I could sense the shadows growing bolder, drawing nearer. "You're not supposed to be here," a voice hissed just behind my ear. I whipped around, my phone light flashing wildly. "Who's there?" I shouted. My voice stronger than before, but every shadow seemed to engulf me. The air thickened, carrying a whisper. "Find her." My pulse quickened. This was all connected. The missing child, the reflection, the laughter. I had to find out how to help her. I scanned the room again, desperate for any other clue, but all I found were memories embedded in the peeling wallpaper, hidden screams of the past. Then, before I could react, the door burst open with a bang, throwing light into the room. A figure stood silhouetted in the doorway, and I squinted against the brilliance. My heart thudded. "Police! Is anyone in here?" The voice registered like an echo in a dream. My instinct was to run toward the light, to escape the madness that swallowed me, but I hesitated, sensing the child's presence still lingered in the air. She needed me. "Mark, help me." The cry cut through the noise, more urgent now. I glanced back at the shadowy corners of the room where I felt the weight of the child's gaze on me. "Are you okay?" The figure stepped further into the room, revealing a uniformed officer. Panic filled the space, and I barely managed to speak. I need to find her. I can't leave her." The officer's eyes widened, and I felt the weight of their scrutiny. But before I could explain, the room grew colder, and a gust of wind blew in, extinguishing my phone's light. The last thing I saw was the officer reaching for me, before darkness enveloped the room completely. In that moment, I understood. This was just the beginning. I had to confront whatever lay ahead if I wanted to save the child. But would I be able to face the truth? I stumbled as the darkness swallowed me whole, fear racing through my veins. It felt as if the walls itself were alive, whispering my name in taunting echoes while I stood there disoriented. Then came the sound of boots thudding against the floorboards, and I clutched the locket tightly, feeling it warm against my palm despite the chill in the air. "Mark, are you there?" A voice cut through the void. It was the officer. A light flickered back to life, illuminating the edges of the room, but I felt nothing but dread. "Yes, I'm here," I shouted, desperation clawing at my throat. But as the brightness filled the space, something shifted. The child's cry faded, replaced by the growing silence of a lost moment. The officer took a few tentative steps towards me, flashlight bouncing around the room. I could see a furrowed brow formed by confusion and concern on their face. "What happened?" "Are you hurt?" they asked, their tones steadying as they took stock of the chaos around us. I don't know," I stammered. "There was a child. I heard her. She needs help." The officer's expression turned wary. "What child? We've searched this house before. There's no one here." Their words sent a jolt of anguish through me. "You have to believe me. She's in here somewhere. I felt her. I saw a mirror. There was something in it." The officer stepped toward me, light throwing shadows behind them, as if trying to peel back layers of my story. I was about to speak again when the wind picked up suddenly, and the temperature dropped further, making me shiver. The door slammed shut behind the officer, trapping us in the suffocating silence. "Mark, I need you to calm down." Their voice became softly authoritative. "I think you might be in shock. Let's get out of here." "No," I cried, feeling the panic rush back in. "She's in danger. I can't leave her." The officer hesitated, glancing toward the door, and in that moment I realized I couldn't just wait for them to understand. I had to act. I bolted past them, dodging debris and darting toward the remnants of the mirror. The air around me buzzed with the memory of the child, and the locket began to pulse a moment before I stepped closer to the wall. As I reached out towards the void that had once been a mirror, I felt something cold brush against my fingertips. This wasn't just a reflection. There was something on the other side. Desperation clawed at my heart, but instinct kicked in and I pressed harder. Suddenly a jarring crack echoed through the room, like thunder rattling the very core of the house. The officer shouted my name, but I was lost in the moment, locked in a battle of wills with whatever lay beyond the abyss. That's when I saw it. A face took shape in the darkness, a pale, scared visage looking back at me. It was the child, eyes wide with terror, reaching out. Before I could register the enormity of what I was seeing, the officer grabbed me, trying to pull me away. But I couldn't move. "Mark, let's go." But I didn't want to leave her. My heart raced as I made a terrible realization. The door wasn't closed for scent. It was locked from the inside. Suddenly, the light flickered and I heard a voice, no longer muted but clear, even more commanding this time. "Help me." Before I could react, the room plunged into darkness. In the blackness, I felt like I was floating in a void. The weight of the silence pressed against me, heavy and oppressive. My heart pounded hard enough that I thought it might burst. "What's happening?" I whispered, half to myself and half to the officer beside me. "Stay close," the officer said, their voice steady, but there was an edge to it. I could feel their tension. The darkness wrapped around us like a chilling embrace. I could barely breathe, the air thick with unease. Then, a faint glow emerged, illuminating the edges of a swirling mist that had formed near where the mirror had stood. I could see shapes dancing in the air, shapes that morphed slowly, teasing my vision as if they were something alive. "Did you see that?" I asked, panic creeping into my voice again. But the officer didn't respond. Their focus shifted toward the mist, eyes narrow with concern. In that moment, I knew I had to reach out again. I wasn't sure what I would find, but I felt an undeniable pull urging me forward. I took a cautious step, and suddenly the air crackled with energy, jolting me back. "Mark, wait!" the officer shouted, but my feet were already moving. The glow brightened slightly, and from it emerged forms that held features of the past, fragments of memories long forgotten. I stumbled and caught a glimpse of the girl again, her terrified expression etched into my mind. "Please help me," she pleaded again, her voice flickering like the ghostly light. It reverberated around me, growing louder, filling the void with urgency. "Mark." The officer grabbed my arm, but I shook them off, desperate. "She's trapped," I yelled. I had to make them understand, but words felt heavy on my tongue. The mist swirled around us, thickening, as if it wanted to engulf everything. Just then, a loud crash shattered the spell, and the officer's flashlight flickered violently. The beams danced wildly, illuminating dark corners of the room. "We can't stay here," they shouted, their voice edged with alarm. "We need to get out, now." "No," I screamed, feeling a surge of rebellion. "I can't leave her." The officer cursed under their breath, frustration etched across their face. "This isn't safe, Mark. We don't know what's in there." Then it all clicked. The door, the child, the very essence of this place. This wasn't a simple rescue. It was a confrontation with something darker than either of us had ever faced. She's trapped between worlds," I finally said, as pieces began to fall into place. "I have to help her." Before I could change my mind, I propelled myself toward the glowing mist, just as a cold wind swept through, slamming the door shut with a deafening roar. The crack of wood echoed, and the flames of the flashlight extinguished. With the darkness closing in, I felt something cold latch onto my wrist, pulling me down. "Mark," the officer shouted, their voice barely slicing through the chaos around me. And then everything went black. I gasped for air, disoriented. Had I been sucked into the void? Had I left the officer behind? And more importantly, was the girl still there? I blinked awestruck for a moment as the dark faded, leaving only twilight swirling around me. I was still in the church, but everything felt warped, distorted, as if time and reality had been twisted into knots. The air hummed with a low frequency, creating an ominous hum that reverberated through my being. My heart thundered like an echo in a vast chamber. "Mark." A soft voice, familiar yet laced with an urgency that sent chills down my spine, broke the silence. I turned, and there she was, the child. She stood amid the flickering shadows, her features soft and vulnerable. But the warmth of her presence felt intertwined with a lingering coldness, as if she straddled two worlds. "Help me," she pleaded again, her eyes wide and pure. Fear clawed at me as I took a tentative step forward. "How?" The words tumbled out unbidden. She pointed toward a darkened corner of the room where shadows converged into an unsettling mass. I could feel the weight of something else lurking there, something that pulsed with malevolence. "It wants me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You don't have to go with it. We can find a way out," I urged, my breath catching in my throat. But deep down, I knew I couldn't just turn and leave. She was the key. Whatever wicked entity trapped her meant to use her. Suddenly the shadows writhed and groaned, and I took a step back. "I can help you. I won't leave you here," I called, though doubt and fear bled through the conviction in my words. The reality of my situation pressed in, away from the girl. A dark entity lingered, hungry and watchful. "Mark!" I could hear the officer echoing somewhere beyond, but the thought faded beneath the mounting dread. I could only focus on her. "Reach for me," I shouted. I stretched out my hand, fighting against the pull of the dark. The energy heightened, swirling with fury, and as my fingers brushed her palm, I was hit with a vision. The room flickered and pulsed, peeling back layers of time. I saw the church, as it had once been, filled with joy, laughter, and life, all stripped away. The child smiled then, surrounded by friends before the scene morphed, revealing shadows creeping closer, claiming this sanctum for something sinister. A sacrifice to hold the darkness at bay. The whisper echoed through the ages, a truth woven into the air itself. "No!" I gasped, yanking my hand back as the world collapsed. The warm flicker of the girl shifted to despair. She was fading as the entity began to invade, growing stronger. My mind raced. I had to protect her. I couldn't lose her to the darkness. "I'll find another way," I shouted defiantly, wrestling against the weight threatening to pull me under. A thought struck me, a glimmer of light amid the tumult. Frantically, I reached into my pocket and pulled out the locket. "Your picture," I exclaimed, remembering its warmth. "It was yours." The shadows hissed, thrashing around me. I held the locket high, its surface reflecting threads of light that spliced through the all-encompassing dark. "This is you. Remember." The girl stopped retreating, hope ignited in her eyes. "You found it." She locked onto the locket with the intensity of pure spirit, and as the shadows lurched toward us, we pressed on, forming a connection fueled by our shared will to break away. "Stay with me," I whispered, willing the light to strengthen. And just like that, the dimness began to unravel. The shadows shrieked, losing their grip as the locket glowed brighter. The cacophony of whispers faded, replaced by the child's giggle, a sound filled with innocent light. In that breakthrough moment, the weight lifted, pulling me like a tide unto the shore. "We're breaking through," I shouted, and she reached out, her small hand wrapping around mine. A simple act, yet it held a truth that shattered the darkness. With one decisive blast of light from the locket, the shadows fell away, fraying to nothing like autumn leaves swept by a whirlwind. The darkness flickered and evaporated, and in the pulsating glow, the room transformed back to its once glorious self. The church stood strong, echoes of laughter flourishing among the walls. And then, everything froze. In an electric heartbeat, I turned to see the child smiling back at me, the reflection of a spirit both untouched and full of life. None of this had fully made sense, yet we had shattered the chains that bound her to the shadows, leaving a pocket of peace. I stood there, trembling but whole, eyes locked with hers. She seemed to flicker, and a part of me ached. She was free, but at what cost? The moment lingered, then she whispered, "Thank you," before dissolving into light. I breathed sharply, exhaling every ounce of lingering fear. The locket grew warm against my chest, pulsing as if it still held a piece of her spirit. The officer found me then, eyes wide with disbelief as they stepped into a room now bathed in light, yet shadows still haunted its edges. "Mark?" I nodded slowly, but felt the lingering weight still bearing down. I could still hear whispers fading into the night, questions unanswered. I think she's gone," I replied, but uncertainty clouded my heart. There was no tangible closure, only a flicker of light in the dark unknown. What had truly happened? What was the nature of those shadows? The answers slipped beyond my grasp, leaving me with only a hollow ache. And so, as the officer turned away, I glanced back toward where she had stood, feeling both relief and sorrow intertwined. I knew I might never fully understand what had transpired in that cursed church, but a small part of me clung to the glimmer of hope she had left behind. I moved away quietly, the echoes of that night forever imprinted within, wondering if I would one day find the strength to return.